I've been putting bad guys away for 44 years. I've been part of investigating over 1,000 deaths. I've been a part of putting more than 400 murders in prison, and I'm still at it. I'm Tim Corbett. These are my cases. This isn't your typical criminal profile podcast. This is Killer Catchers. Hi, Tim Corbett again here tonight with you. KillerCatchers.com on YouTube. That's why we're here. This is what we're going to be talking about tonight. The truth, the most important thing, the truth. You're going to hear direct from Tim Wiley, who was here last week with us, and Ken Cornelis. Ken just recently retired about a month ago, and Wiley's still there. I retired a year ago next month. So good to go. Still participating, still doing cold case homicides, suspicious deaths, unsolved. You can call me at 574-229-8115. So all that's out of the way. Tonight we're going to be talking about Troy Mapes. Troy was killed in Merrifield Park in Mishawaka, Indiana on February 19th, 2016 at about 10:39 p.m. Obviously in February, if you're not familiar with South Bend, Indiana, it is colder than hell. It's nasty. It's just bad. You're going to hear some things tonight about a drug deal that went bad. And when I say bad, a planned event to rob somebody. Instead of dealing with the drugs, they just decided they better go ahead and rob them and take whatever they have. 4 people were arrested during this investigation. We have some juveniles, so we're not going to mention their names. And you're going to hear about an adult. All of them were found guilty or pled guilty. So this is a case of a combined effort of the Mishawaka Police Department, some South Bend officers, County Metro Homicide, and the FACT team. The FACT team takes care of accidents. That's not our bailiwick. It wasn't our bailiwick. We're good at what we do with homicides, but yaw marks and skid marks and measurements and all that traffic crap, you can have it. We wanted nothing to do with this, so we brought the experts in, and they did their thing while we did our thing. So what I'm going to do, as I said, Tim Wiley here, he was one of the key investigators on this, and I'm going to let him kind of start out, give us just a tiny little bit of an overview, then we'll let Kenny talk about how he's probably still falling out from 2016.
True. Right. So February 19th, 2016, 10:39 p.m., first 911 call started coming in saying that a car drove through the park, Merrifield Park, and ran over a juvenile. So within 5 minutes, uniform officers from the Mishawaka Police Department actually get on scene and start talking to the 3 kids that are on their feet, and there's one that's actually on the ground rolling around still in a very bad way. A lot of pain, a lot of suffering. And we can tell that because I actually had to watch every single minute of the body cam from that officer that actually was out there and standing over this kid while he's essentially passing away. So within 5 minutes, these kids, the 3 that are on their feet, have already concocted this story about just they were hanging out in the park, nothing going on, no drug usage, none of this, none of that, nothing nefarious was going down. But this vehicle drove through the park at a high rate of speed and ran over Troy Mapes for, quote unquote, by them, no reason whatsoever. So that was their story.
So while they're concocting the story, did any of them help the victim?
They tried to help the victim, but the way they tried to help him was essentially call 911 and hide the other evidence that was associated with what they were really doing in the park.
There's a good lesson. You can always count on your thug buddies to help you out. You're laying there dying in pain. You need an ambulance, and the best thing they can do is go, let's go hide the shit. What else?
So we get those 3 kids that are on their feet. They drive themselves to the Mishawaka Police Department because it was going to be originally a Mishawaka case and a FACT case because there was a car involved. And the young man that was ran over was taken to the hospital. The 3 individuals were rerouted from the Mishawaka Police Department when they got there to the Metro Homicide Unit because Troy was in such a bad way that it was decided that it was going to be a homicide case as opposed to a FACT case. So those 3 kids get sent. They drive themselves again to the Metro Homicide Unit and sit down and give us interviews.
Okay. And about that time, Kenny, you guys are getting out there?
Yeah, I got the call shortly after midnight on the 20th. My assigned partner was Jim Andrews at the time. We get a call to make the office. He had already went to the scene and took a look at it. So I went to MHU, made ready the crime scene truck, and then we went to the scene. It was Crawford Park / Muirfield Park. And when we got there, it was low level lighting. There was a street light on by the pavilion. It was like the parking area. And that's kind of basically where we set up shop at to start to begin to process the scene. My first observations, Andrews and I, when we walked it, up by the parking lot, there's a wooden roof covered pavilion. And I noticed there was a large concrete parking stop bumper that was way out of sync and peeled forth and in the grass. And there were tire tracks from up and over that large chunk of concrete. There was a really good sized mud puddle, and then there were two uniform tire tracks, and you could see the feathering in the mud. It was very cold, but there was enough. There was not a whole lot of snow on the ground, but it was wet. And the feathering, you could see where the two tires were under acceleration.
What do you mean by feathering, so everybody understands it?
You can see where when the wheels are turned, they're slinging. Centrifugal force is slinging mud and grass. And you can see where these tracks, they're somewhat deep. And I really wouldn't call it scalloped, but I would use feathering where the grass is removed. It's down to the mud and the tracks are going sideways. And basically they were accelerating through the park through the to the east. And continuing on, walking into, I noticed a set of tracks and then a large sort of bald area in the grass. And there was two small tracks, and that's where they found the victim.
Now, when you're saying tracks, you know about foot traffic tracks or car tracks?
Actually, there were car tracks, and then there was another set of tracks I couldn't figure out. And what it was actually the ambulance, because they were so narrow. It was the gurney, the stretcher. So thanks for clarification there. As I'm walking through, proceeding to the east, I started noticing black plastic, what appeared to be automotive parts, and I was a certified General Motors mechanic prior to becoming a police officer for over 11 years. I was a master technician, and I know car parts when I see them, and they were fresh car parts.
I wasn't any of that, but I do know what a bumper looks like.
Yeah, well, this was actually the under engine drivetrain protection cover. It was a large piece of plastic that was in several other pieces. And I noticed there was rivets, there was antifreeze on it, a hunk of grease. So I figured, well, and it was laying right in the thoroughfare, or in between where these tracks were. Plus other pieces were scattered about along this trail proceeding to the east. So at which point I'm looking with my flashlight and I see the word Nissan and a part number. Okay, hold that thought for later. We got to document the scene and lay out our evidence markers. Pretty extensive walking through the scene, measuring the overall, the front wheelbase of the vehicle to see what type of car you have, if it's like an SUV or a pickup truck. All we heard, that the initial information we got, was kids were in the park. There was some sort of a gray SUV that proceeds through the park and strikes the victim and then continues and drives away. Exits the park at the east end onto Niles Avenue, then proceeds north.
How big of a park is that? How many acres, you think?
I would have to say at least maybe 3 acres. It was not so big, but it kind of connected to another park, which would have been Merrifield across the street to the north, as I recall.
When you saw those tracks and you heard the preliminary story, you know, here we are, we're just minding our own business, and all of a sudden this vehicle comes through here and just decides to run Troy Mapes over. What was your first initial action or thought when you seen what was out there and observed the scene?
There was a vehicle that I believe started in the parking lot, proceeded through and over that large concrete bumper, proceeded at a high rate of speed through the park itself.
Did your finely tuned BS detector go off like
Yes,
this?
my bullshit detector went to the 10th power and off the Richter scale at that point. So there had to be some sort of an interaction, I would have thought, because the usual, I was just at the park minding my own business when all of a sudden this SUV comes out of the sky and runs my buddy over.
Especially
Okay, a little more to it than
especially about 11:15 at night when it's cold and nasty.
that.
Well, now while you guys are doing all that, you guys are back at the office. Who's there with you to help interview?
I got Gary Mullins, who's back there with me, and also running in between and doing interference for us was Alex Arndt. He's our assistant commander at the time, and he's helping us out trying to figure out who we need to talk to, where do we need to go, and all that good stuff. We talked to the 3 kids that were there. They had time to practice their story. They had that 5-minute window in the very beginning. They've driven around themselves to the Mishawaka Police Department. They've driven themselves to the Metro Homicide Unit. So they've had time to practice their stories. They get in the rooms, and no matter what we said, they pretty much stuck with that story. They stuck with, this is what happened. For no reason, that car came in, drove through the park, hit Troy, and then left. So they stuck with that story. So at that point, we're not getting any traction. We're not getting anywhere with these kids. So we send them back to their parents, and we send them home. But by that time, so the kids are out, and the investigators were like, you know what, we need to go out to the scene. We need to see this place for myself. I need to see it for myself because I hadn't been out there yet. So we get out there, and I'm looking at the tire tracks and all this other stuff, and I'm looking from the perspective of where the car started to where it left, and I can see steering adjustments that this car has made while it's going through the park. Because if it just went straight, it would have hit the pavilion. So if it just went straight, it would hit the pavilion that was right in front of it. Car crash right there. End of story. But it made steering adjustments, and it went this way and this way and this way. And if it had gone just a little off, run into some trees. That's again, another car crash that would end the whole thing right there. But where the kid was, where Troy was, the car steered towards where he was. So in my mind, there's no doubt that we know who was driving, but at the time, there's no doubt in my mind that the driver knew where he was going and could see what he was doing when he did it, and he was actually adjusting that steering wheel to do
He
it.
was tracking it.
Yes.
Did you see any footprints anywhere out there to show, you know, where the tire tracks are and the footprints in front of them were going at him?
No footprints, but there was in the tire tracks, in between the tire tracks themselves, there were clothing items. There was a matching shoe and a black stocking cap that were in the area, or in those tire tracks in between them.
Okay.
No footprints, actual physical footprints. There was a mark later on that we found we determined that was Troy Mapes' body that left that imprint in the ground.
Okay, so does it look like as he's running or trying to get away, he's hitting the back, knocked down, and then the car goes over the top of him? Or what did it look? How did it end up? Through
Later
the back?
on, I ended up finding 2 little finger prints that were pulled down where a hand was holding on to the front bumper cover, and like the area of the front spoiler on the trim, there were 2 finger marks that had slid off of those piece of decorative trim on the right front side of the vehicle.
So Troy had actually gone under the car.
Under the car and
As
was
opposed to going
grabbing
over the top,
onto
he'd gone underneath.
something to try to keep him going under that car.
Okay. So now we're still interviewing. Tell me how that went. What happened if you're done interviewing?
Well, one of the kids said, Troy was using my phone at one point, so we got a permission to search on that phone so we could forensically extract the information from the phone. So that was cooking off to the side. The kids are gone, but then I get a phone call from one of the kids' moms. She calls me up and says, okay, I heard the two of the kids talking, and this is what they said. They said that they were actually out there to do a drug deal for Klonopin. It's a prescription drug. I don't know exactly what it does, but I just know it's very addictive apparently. So they were out there to do a drug deal for Klonopin, and they were talking to a guy named Troy. I'm sorry, they were talking to a guy named Zach. That's all that they had. The first part of it was Zach was there to buy Klonopin from the kids. So that's what the mom told me. So fast forward a little bit, we get the forensic extraction from one of the kids' phones. And the very last thing, right before they call 911, there's this phone number. So this phone number, start doing our due diligence of searching that phone number, finding out who it comes back to, who it belongs to. And it comes back to a kid by the name of Zach Sanders. When I say kid, he was 20 at the time. So he was a little older. So now we have the conversation that the mom told me about Zach. And now we have the phone number, and that phone number coming back to a kid named Zach Sanders. Do some searching through property records and mailing addresses and whatnot. We find that Zach Sanders actually has an address in Osceola, which is north of Mishawaka. Go over there, knock on mom and dad's door of him, and they say, no, he lives over with grandma. Where's that? Well, they give us the address. Go over to grandma's house. Knock on the door. There he is. He's standing right there in front of me in his pajamas. And,
Pajamas?
He's in his pajamas.
Who wears pajamas?
Yeah. By this time, it's several hours after the initial thing. So this is like 8 o'clock in the morning. So we're talking to him, and I say, hey, I want you to come on down to the Metro Homicide Unit. I'm Detective so-and-so. I want to talk to you about some stuff that happened. Okay. Grabs his stuff and goes. While we're there at the door, and before we actually walked up to the door, and this is where it's very important that Kenny found that piece of whatever that came back to a Nissan, and the part number came back to belonging to that, whatever that piece was, but it was a Nissan Murano. So that's where the parts that he collected in the park come in really important, because in the driveway of grandma's house is a silver Nissan Murano. And it's got damage on it. It's got all this other stuff. So these pieces are all starting to click together really well. So we got Zach. We got my man Kenny here. He stays behind and gets a search warrant for the Nissan so we can get that towed back to, I think it was South Bend, to get it processed. And all
Right,
that.
we needed the lift
Right, to get underneath
in the
it.
tech bay.
So Kenny's working on that. We're working on getting Troy, sorry, I keep saying Troy, Zach, down to the office so we can talk to him. Get a statement out.
Okay. Now, when you got Zach down, what happened with that?
Well, the interesting thing about Zach's statement was, from the very get-go, he never asked, why are the murder police at my door at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday? Never asked the question, because he knew why we were there. There was no question in my mind. He already knew what was going down. He didn't have the wherewithal or the skill to fight back. He just, whatever, I'll go with it. So we get him down there, start talking to him. And he does say, he did finally admit that it was going to be he was going to be the buyer of Klonopin. That's what he was going to do. He was going to buy Klonopin from these kids that he had been introduced to via another friend that he was going to buy the drugs from. So he's in the car, he's in the park, he's at that pavilion. So he's sitting there in his car. And two kids get into the car, one in the front seat, one behind him. The one in the one in the back seat's got a gun. Points to his head and says, give me all your money. He doesn't want to do that. He's trying to negotiate with them, trying to do this, trying to do that. And he says, I don't want to do that. I want the drugs. Nope, no drugs. Give me your money. So eventually he gives them the money. Two kids get out of the car and run away. Now, initially his story was that the kid with the gun turned around from the middle of the park, no less, and pointed the gun at him. So therefore he felt that he had to put the car in drive the 200 yards from where he was parked to where the kid was and run him over. That's what he initially said, and that's what he said. That's the reason why he did it. In my mind, while he's saying this, I'm thinking 200 yards ahead with a small P gun, essentially, it's a small little silver piece of crap gun. Put in reverse, get out of there, leave. You do not have to drive through the park. You do not have to run this kid down. You do not have to do any of that stuff. Just leave. But that's what Zach decided to do, was put in drive, go forward, and essentially run this kid down. He did say at one point, taking off like that, I didn't think did I really hit one of them? I hit one of them, didn't I? Something along those lines. That's what he says. So at that point, we have him on the hook for what he did in the park.
Okay. And just so everybody's clear, when it's called acting in concert, when us three decide we're going to go do a drug deal, we're acting in concert. He agreed to it. He agreed to it. Everybody has their part in it. And the act of one is the act of all. So if I'm just going to be the driver, I know it's going to be a robbery. He's going to be the guy with the gun, and he's going to be the guy that's going to say, give me all the stuff. If he panics and shoots the guy and kills him, I can get a murder case, so can he, so can he. So it's acting in concert. The act of one is the act of all. So a lot of times with these geniuses, they think when they put these things together that, it wasn't me that shot him. Yeah, but it was you that was there. It was you that helped concoct the story. It was you that helped put this, they call it a stain. I don't know why they call it a stain. Probably can't even spell stain, but that's what they do. And just so everybody's clear, they means the bad guy. We're not talking about ethnicity or plumbing. We're talking about criminals, so nobody gets their feelings hurt. And that's what these guys are. They're criminals. Who the hell at the age, and some of these people are juveniles, just to even know the terminology and even come up with the idea. I think we'll just go do a robbery. Hell, at 15, 16, 17 years old, I know, that was a long time ago when I was a kid, you weren't thinking about anything like that. You didn't even know anything about, you didn't think about robberies or anything dirty. You had a girlfriend you were, trying to do what boys and girls do and probably weren't very successful. But, you just didn't do stuff like this. But it's so acceptable that, it's cool. Now, Kenny is putting together a search warrant to be able to get into the vehicle that ran him over. Yeah, we might have been able to get a permit to search, but with something it's going to be that much a piece of this case, that the evidence on that vehicle is actually going to be the key component to this. You're better off with the search warrant. There's no arguments that I didn't understand what I was signing. You guys forced me. You picked on me, yelled at me. You treated me bad. It was too hot. It was too cold, whatever. So we covered ourselves. Once that vehicle, now we're at 8 o'clock or so in the morning, right? Mm-hmm. So gone all night. Now we're at 8 o'clock. How much longer did you guys run with this?
I know I stuck around until at least the middle of the afternoon because we were still doing other stuff.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, it was later on in the day because after we finished the outside scene and we broke down from there, came back to the office, and I immediately Googled that part number that was on the piece of plastic that I had found.
Wait. You got on a computer and Googled
I
it?
did.
I
did.
Turn that off. I'm getting ready to faint.
And actually, that's how I narrowed it down. That particular part number in the Nissan parts manual popped up. It showed exactly what it was. The pieces that I had recovered out in the park, all broken up, was the front underbody engine and drivetrain cover, all in plastic.
So now we have a direct connection between that vehicle, that driver, to that house.
We didn't know.
Park.
Correct. We, at that time, prior to me looking it up, we did not know that we were dealing with a 2004 Nissan Murano 4-door. That's what it popped up, that particular part only fit on vehicles from 2002 to 2004. And when the name Zach Smith came up, we went to his parents' house. And he no longer lived there. He's residing with grandmother Candace Smith on Stratton Court. What kind of car has he been driving? A Nissan Murano 4-door. So we all proceed over to Stratton Court. Parked in the driveway pointing west is the silver gray Nissan Murano 4-door. And I'm looking at the back end of the car as I'm driving by, and I can clearly see what appears to be dried red stains on the rear exhaust pipe, tailpipe extension, chrome extension, which is indicative. I right away thought it was blood. So Wiley and Mullins, we all converge on the house. I cover the back. They go in. They meet up with the suspect, Zach Sanders, take him into custody. And I just do a walk around the car. There's a lot of mud, a lot of grass.
Well, he wasn't really in custody, was he? He was asked to come down and give a.
He was asked to come down.
So he had free and easy movement. He could
Correct.
have left at any time. It was not.
My bad.
Yeah.
At any rate, the outward evidence that I saw on the vehicle was indicative this thing did a lawn job someplace because there was nice green grass all over it, up into the wheel wells. And I looked underneath and I could see more red staining along the underside of the car. The car was actually missing that front engine underbody drivetrain cover. And I could see pieces of what appeared to be like denim jean material that were caught on sharp edges of components underneath that car. So the victim had on a pair of jeans and I believe a jean jacket as well. So at which point a search warrant was drafted. I stayed behind and secured the vehicle and recovered the keys later on from the grandmother. She indicated that her grandson was out last night and that he had taken the car. She had fallen asleep and didn't know what time he had come home.
Well, now getting back to the vehicle, after you drafted the search warrant, the prosecutor has to put their thumbs up on it. Then it goes to a judge,
Correct.
and the judge says yay or nay, and obviously the judge says yes. You stayed behind to protect the scene.
Correct.
That vehicle.
Yes.
Now, was it towed or was it put up on a flatbed?
I requested a flatbed so we would not contaminate, pretty much lose any evidence whatsoever. So I made sure that I called for the flatbed once the warrant arrived. And I made sure that the record driver cleaned off his vehicle so there would be no cross-contamination. And actually, we got the vehicle on the flatbed, tied it down. Of course, rubber gloves not touching the exterior of the vehicle. That was for fingerprint DNA purposes.
But here's what's important. Not only that, just so the viewers know, we have to have a police officer follow that vehicle
Yes.
from the place that it's picked up all the way down to the police station. Literally get behind it, and if it's 2 miles or 200 miles, that's what we have to do, because the defense attorney is going to say, well, how do we know you didn't drive that vehicle back to the scene and throw mud up underneath it? How can, all the once upon a time BS that, they try and pull, and they know when they're saying it, it's BS, but, everybody has a right to a defense. I get it. I just don't get a lot of the lies. But anyway, we do that to protect it. The vehicle was then taken down to South
Chain
Bend.
of custody.
And when did you guys end up processing that vehicle to match the parts that, or the pieces that were found? And was that the next day, like Sunday or Monday?
We started on it. We were Saturday into Sunday, and then it was Monday. Somebody else attended the autopsy, and I went over and began documentation of the vehicle, up and down and on the lift and the underside of it. And then I took the parts that I had found at the scene, and using evidence marker labels, I took and put it together like a puzzle piece. And then I had another assistant, Kyle Slater, help me, and we held it in place to show where it went and the other pieces it actually connected to. So you could present that to the jury and show them that, yes, in fact, this piece all put together, multiple pieces, formed this one part, and came off of this vehicle.
Is that what happened?
That's exactly what happened.
Okay, so now we've got the evidence from where it happened at, connected to someone. Now we've got the pieces that are matching. Good case. So you guys are talking to these people. You're bringing them in for another interview. And what happened with that?
Well, before we bring him in for the second interview, we brought in the link between Zach and the kids, the guy that actually supposedly set up the drug deal. We get him in, sit him down. He was another juvenile. Sit down with him, and he tells us that, yeah, I told him about the deal. Go ahead and do the deal. After the deal comes back, Zach sent him a Facebook message saying, he robbed me, so I ran him over, so it's cool. That's the mentality that Zach had after this whole thing in the park and all this other stuff. So that's the more accurate mindset than what he told me in the interview. He robbed me, so I ran him over, so it's cool. It just freezes my blood when I hear that, or when I read it. So anyway, we bring the kids back in for second interviews, and they confirm certain parts of Zach's story that yes, it actually was a robbery on our part. We were going to do this because of that. We were going to do this because of this. We wanted the money and all that other stuff. So they do eventually confess to it being a drug deal / robbery, as opposed to just being in the park. So we get their stories on that. We get the first two the first day, and then we get the third kid the next day. Get him to come back in and confess to us.
Okay, so 4 people end up getting arrested.
4 people got arrested. Zach got arrested for voluntary manslaughter, and the other 3 got arrested for attempted murder, the 3 kids from the park. Troy could not be arrested because he was killed in the park. But if what he had done, if he would have been caught for the robbery itself, he would have also been on the hook for the robbery. The robbery, because they did complete it.
So here's a novel idea. How about get a job and take care of yourself? How about not trying to rob somebody? How about not running people over? Hope you're enjoying prison. That was a good plan. We go through these things every week. Every Tuesday we release a new one, and then we film another one, and we release another one on the following Tuesday, and on and on and on. There's 400 or 500 of these that we're going to be able to go through and tell you. But it has the same ring through all of them. Greed, stupidity, narcissistic, all those elements are there. This world isn't that tough. It's really not. I can go anywhere right now within a 5-block area where I'm at, and I can find you a job. If you want a job, there's jobs. So coming up with these plans, I'm sure right now some of these people, when they got whacked for that, their job was scrubbing toilets in the prison system, trying to keep somebody off your back from killing you or raping you. So, if you're thinking about getting in the business of stains, you might want to reconsider it. But if you do get caught, don't blame it on me. I'm not denying you school. I'm not denying you a job. I'm not denying you food. I'm not denying you anything. You're making the decisions yourself, and a lot of them are stupid, and it costs you. So stop blaming me. Clean up your own house. Take care of your own business, your own neighborhoods, your own everything before you start blaming me and everyone else for your stupidity. Just that simple. It's just that simple. So now, 3 of them pled?
The 3 kids pled to robbery.
Okay, so, they get sent to Disney World for 2 weeks or whatever, because we have a very harsh system around here. They probably had to pay their own way in, I don't know. And then Zach, what'd he get?
He ended up taking it to trial, and all this evidence that we've talked about thus far was presented at trial, and the jury, after a couple hours, said, yeah, you're guilty of voluntary manslaughter.
Did he get up on the stand?
He did. He got up on the stand and he testified. He testified very poorly, but he did testify, and he tried to say that, yeah, I was scared. I did this. I only drove through the park because he upped the gun on me from way over there. But that whole line of he robbed me, so I ran him over, so it's cool.
So let me get this right. He's 200 yards away. I pull a gun on him, and I'm frightened, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm peeing down both legs. So my plan, in addition to the stupid thing I already did, is I'm going to drive the 200 yards so I can get closer so he has a better field of fire in a closer target-rich environment because I'm so frightened.
Mhm.
And in that process, I developed this plan. Hell, I'm here, might as well run him over.
Yep. So that's what he tried to tell, and I'm grateful that the jury didn't buy any of that.
That one should have started off with once upon a time. I mean, where do you come up with that? But what's the use of being stupid if you can't act like it, right?
Right.
That's what it boils down to.
There was also when Zach was in jail prior to going to trial, there were two individuals that came forward and said, "Hey, he's told us this stuff," and we listened to their stories, we listened to what they had to say, and vetted out the information that they gave us, and essentially Zach told them that what it felt like running over this kid was like hitting a human speed bump. I mean, that's just, again, the level of callousness that
No remorse.
No.
And we won't mention those two people's names, but one of them was a cooperator with me over the past several years, and came forward. And in fact, I've put that guy in prison a couple times myself, but he did something stupid. We caught him, and you gotta pay the price, but always treated fairly. He was never treated bad, and of course they all want a little bit of love, and we all get that. It's a necessary part of the job. So these two people that came forward, did they also testify?
They were not eventually called. They didn't need to be called because Zach essentially kind of admitted that, yeah, I did talk to those guys. So we didn't actually have to produce them for trial.
Okay. Kenny, is there anything else evidentiary wise that, you and Kyle Slater putting this piece of the puzzle together? No, you guys are staying in contact with each other, the investigators, so you're passing information back and forth.
Yes, in being in contact with the investigators, they were able to obtain and achieve this storyline, and then we always follow the evidence. But when you have you have suspects or witness accounts, okay, now it's a drug deal. Now we can look for this. Now it was a robbery / drug deal gone bad. At which point we have this car. Not only do we have the underside of it was covered in blood, we knew that the victim was in the left rear passenger seat. Another suspect was in the right front passenger seat. So at which point our processing of that vehicle changes. It broadens the scope of our investigation because now, given the storyline, we have to put them in that vehicle or try to, which means fingerprint, DNA, anything that you could possibly obtain evidentiary could be very important because, in fact, this case did go to trial. So we had to be prepared, covering all of our bases. So we kept that car for a considerable amount of time. But anything and everything that you can obtain, you have to contain it because you only have one shot to get it. Otherwise, if you lose that, and it's gone forever.
Didn't we find a gun?
We found several guns. We ended up going to one of the kids' houses. We sent the Mishawaka Street Crimes over there, and with a search warrant, or maybe a permit to search, I don't remember off the top of my head, but they did recover the gun that was used in this particular incident that had been hidden in the trunk of the car that the kids drove themselves from the crime scene to the Mishawaka Police Department to our place and then away. So that gun had traveled not only to the park, there, and all the way back to where it came from. And one of the kids' grandparents' gun safe.
Was one of the guns that you guys recovered, was that one of them that was going to be used in a robbery or was used in a robbery?
Yes. Described by not only the other kids, but also described by Zach, the exact description of what the gun looked like.
And the jury was only out a couple hours?
I think they stopped long enough to have lunch.
That's just what I was getting ready to say. That was one of those. You probably don't even need to leave the jury box just going, man, you want to be the foreman? Yeah, what do you think? Done. But, if there's Barnaby's Pizza involved, you probably do want to get a feed bag on before you before you do what you got to do. But this is another case of everybody coming together and working together. I mean, it's really just that simple. If cops are allowed to do what we do, investigate, sometimes you have to arrest. It happens. Don't put yourself in that position. You won't be arrested. That's the way it goes. But anything you want to say? Anything else?
Just that first phone call and then working it. We were all dead tired by the time we were all done with it, but we had at least Zach in custody by the time we went home that day, late in the afternoon of the next day from when this whole thing started. So roughly 48 hours of no sleep. I think I had a cat nap in there, like 5 minutes, 6 minutes, something like that. But that got me energized, and the other officers that were with me we keep each other going. If I'm getting tired, somebody steps up and says, "Hey, let's go do this, let's do that." All right, yeah, you're right. Let's do that. Doesn't matter if I'm tired. I got to work for that victim to get this thing resolved.
You didn't have time to take out for systemic racism and picking on people and lying in reports and planting evidence. Just you didn't have time to work that into your busy schedule that, all these people are saying that's absolutely not accurate. What you heard right here, 48 hours. Can you imagine that? 48 hours of having to do everything right, following by the book, doing search warrants, applying for the search warrants, following through with the search warrants, photographs, diagrams, interviewing people, making sure you're not violating rights and all that. You guys hear me say this all the time. When you hear stuff like that, challenge it. Please challenge it, because you're being lied to. You are being lied to. No cop wakes up on a nice bright sunny day like we have here and goes, "Geez, it's a great day. God, I hope I get to kill somebody today. My God, the sun's out. It would be so I can have everybody scrutinize me, everybody call me a liar, get indicted and all that." Said it before, I'm going to say it every one of these episodes. No good cop likes a bad cop. We don't want them around us any more than what you do. But the same stuff that people are saying, I'm being painted with this broad brush of prejudice and all that, you're doing the exact same thing to every cop. When you hear people say all cops are systemic racists. We heard our little mayor at one time do it. And now, he's in Washington, D.C. singing that tune. You got the clown sitting at the front singing that. It's BS. It's meant to divide people. It's meant to cause problems. Shouldn't be dividing people. You should be bringing them together. And these clowns are doing it. Doing it meaning they're dividing. They have no idea what they're talking about. Defund cops? Yeah, that's what you want. Less cops on the street. Who are they asking? Gangbangers? Yeah, if I'm a gangbanger, I don't want cops on the street. Take money away from them. Yep, so more cops will retire and go, you know what? Keep this job. That's exactly what you want. Next time your house gets broke into, call your local gangbanger and have him come over and help you. I'm sure you'll get a fair job on that. Common sense prevails. Think for yourself. Don't listen to these news media clowns that don't know their ass from an apple. Don't listen to them. They couldn't spell it if you gave them the I. They have no idea. Kenny?
I'd just like to say, once again, it was good police work. We all came to the table. We chased this thing for 2 days. I was sick, but you just keep going on. We don't pick, or the years that I was there, we don't pick and choose the colors of our victims or our suspects. That's just the way it happened. And everybody gets the same treatment above and beyond. As long as we can stand up. Yeah, there's times that we got to sit down because you're so tired you want to puke on your shoes. Literally. But once again, overall, it's a team effort. And everybody brings a little bit and puts a little bit into the case. And that's how we prevail.
Well, last word's mine. I want to thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to be a policeman for 45 years. It was an honor and a privilege, and I truly mean that. It's not a commercial. I truly mean that. I want to thank all the first responders and all the vets in the past, the vets now, and the vets in the future that make this country safe and fight and have given their lives, as well as the policemen. Over 100 policemen so far this year have been murdered. But you probably know their name, right? Oh, you don't? But you hear the rhetoric about when a cop kills somebody, think about the last cop in your area that was killed. What's his name? What's her name? Go to Real News Michiana. Real News Michiana. That's where you're going to get the true news about what happens in this little jurisdiction. South Bend, St. Joseph County, Mishawaka, all that. You're going to get the down and dirty, what really happened. Not the warm and fuzzies, not the fluff, not the lies, not the direction that we, the news media, want you to believe. It's going to be the truth. So watch it. Clifton French does a hell of a job. Again, I'm Tim Corbett. If you ever need to get a hold of me, I can be reached at 574-229-8115. I still do homicide cases. I still have a team of investigators and experts. And you have a situation of any kind of crime that's not been adjudicated, has not been solved, call us. We'll take care of business for you. Thank you.